Cheat Code, Support Strategist, by Clouds. My head in the clouds, not coming down. On AO3. Chapter 32. Scramble. And with that, looks like the 10 million point headband is out of the game. Hisashi's voice echoed over the silent stadium, which immediately exploded in an uproar. Again! Are they even allowed to do that? Once again, there is no rule against it. Shota sighed in exhaustion, though that will likely change in the future years after this little performance. I had wondered if there was something else fishy going on with the headband when Uraraka didn't deactivate her quirk after Team Shinso gave up the headband. Like most quirks that affect an object, Uraraka's quirk isn't indefinite, so there must have been some reason she chose to keep it active on that particular headband throughout the fight. In this case, the weightlessness of the headband prevented the other teams from realizing that it had been tampered with. In any normal situation, the other teams would have noticed the extra weight from the planted explosives. But apparently, Team Shinso is anything but normal. Midoriya, the problem child, looked up at the announcer booth and gave him a small thumbs up that made Shota roll his eyes. Of course, the kid had known exactly what he was doing by having Uraraka use her quirk on the headband. Shota didn't even know why he was surprised, considering how often Powerloader complained about Hatsume's pretensions for explosions. But for some reason, Shota had assumed that getting the target off their backs and going after the small value points had been the extent of those crazy kids' plan. Apparently, he still needed to learn his lesson about not underestimating the support course. Or maybe just not underestimating Nezu's prodigy. Hisashi grinned widely and shook his head in disbelief, as both of them turned their attention to the steam still on the floor. For those of you still catching up, the insane power play has put Team Shinso in the lead with almost half of the remaining points. Team Monoma and Tokoyami are up next, followed by Team Todoroki, and everyone else has practically zilch. So for Team Shinso's plan to not be a target, with 2 minutes left on the clock, how are they going to survive? They weren't. Honestly, if Deku had resorted to dirty tricks like blowing up points to win, he'd at least should have been smart enough to do it with the last minute, so that he had time to recover. But it was Deku. What an idiot! And had the most points on the board, which meant it was time for him to die. Come on, extras. Katsuki growled on his team, which immediately started charging towards Deku, along with what looked like everyone else on the field. Not that that mattered. Deku was his. I'm gonna kill you, Deku! Except for the fact that Deku was gone. What is this? Mike's voice screamed above the noise of the crowds, who seems to be eating up the last minute upset. Team Shinso has taken to the air! Are they? Yes, they're allowed to do that, Aizawa sighed. Honestly, it's probably their own valuable strategy now that everyone is being forced to scramble for the last minute points. Valuable strategy. Yeah, right. Like he'd let a little thing like gravity keep him from beating Deku to the ground. Katsuki didn't hesitate for a second before blasting off and rocketing towards the damn nerd's team to catch up a lesson about darting to humiliate him. Hitoshi! Deku smirked at him. Smirked as he yelled to that useless Gen Ed extra on his team. Now! Suddenly there was a snap, and Bakugo was wrapped in metal-like ribbon or something, and before he knew it, he was being flung back to Earth. And that, folks, is why it pays to have a good relationship with the support course, Mike yelled. That's one rocking support item. Kind of reminds me of yours, Eraser. Bakubro, Shidehiro yelled. Come on, Zero, catch him. He was wrapped up for a second time that minute, this time in tape, and pulled back to his team. That's it. Deku's definitely has to die. What's going on? Puni screamed. her voice wavering in barely concealed panic. Tokoyami shook his head, and his eyes widened as he realized there was 2 different teams charging straight towards them. What a mad banquet of darkness! Being edgy isn't helping, dude! Kamakiri shouted, blades already popping from his skin as he prepared to fight. What the hell just happened? The last thing he remembered clearly, they had been engaged in some sort of physical warfare with Uraraka's team. But then everything went hazy. He had been vaguely aware of a sense of panic when he had lost control of an emerging dark shadow, and then seemed to remember going after other teams? Pony has hazardly shot her horns at the approaching teams, forcing them to dodge and lose valuable times. How many points do we have? Kamakiri glanced at the board. I think we're in 3rd place right now. No wonder everyone's coming after us. The purple one brainwashed us, Dark Shadow yelled, swinging at some vines with his claws. I'm sorry, Fukaji. I tried to save you. All is well, Dark Shadow. The Agents of Chaos has decided to leave us enough points to stay in the running. Tokoyami started down their opponents. Our challenge now is to keep them. Idiots! All of them! Momoma said, hauntingly. We don't even need any more points at this point, unlike those 1A frontrunners. Well, yeah, Tushibasa said, slightly out of breath. But now we're the prey, not the hunters. Tokuyuri nodded in agreement. We no longer stay in the shadows. Well then, Momoma smiled, reaching out to copy a quirk from one of the 1A students trying to attack them. I suppose we'll just have to shine then. Tetsu hardened his body again, his skin glistening in the sun as he looked down at his team. Everyone good on the plan? God will be willing, this will grant us success. Shirasashi nodded somberly. What she said, Aoizi agreed. But if it doesn't work, we're screwed. All right, Teshu grinned. Charge! They lunged forward, and Shajiriri used all her vines to restrain Dark Shadow, while Hankari softened the ground beneath the team Tokoyami into a quick sand-like consistency. Their team quickly began sinking, and Tetsu did his best to block as many horns and blades as he could with his hardening skin, so that Ashura could get close enough to Pony to meld her horns to her head. No! Pony yelled and tried to slap them away, but Tetsu was already reaching towards Tokoyami's headband. Don't you dare steal Fugurumi's points! Dark Shadow roared and broke through the layer of vines that had been holding him back. Tetsu's eyes widened, and he was about to retreat and called the whole thing a loss when a laser suddenly shot past them, reflectingly blinding off his hardening skin. Dark Shadow whimpered, shaking in on himself almost instantly. It wasn't much of an opening, but the split second was enough for Tetsu to grab some points and run away. Seriously, dude? Tsuburi sounded distinctly impressed. You really need to work on your aim. That laser didn't even go near the teams we're actually fighting. Momoa cranked his shoulder and swooped a mouthful of bites. Yeah, well, I like to see you try and aim a laser from your stomach when it feels like you're about to explode. Oi, the stupid 1A French wannabe winked at them. My quirk is pretty difficult, Nan. That's why I need this stylish belt. Not the time, Ayumama. The monkey boy glared at Momomo, who tried to grab at his points, but Momomo simply copied Tsuburi's quirk and made himself a shield of solid air, trapping the monkey boy's hand for long enough that they could retreat. He glanced up the board as the pain in his stomach finally started to subside. Still in the top 3. Not bad for 1B. Hitoshi panted as he had to use his weapon to rebuff Bakugo again. Wow, this guy really doesn't know when to give up, does he? Hitoshi panted as he had to use his weapon to rebuff Bakugo again. Wow, this guy really doesn't know when to give up, does he? That's Bakugo for you! Uraraka looked like she was starting to get nauseous, but she assured them at the beginning that while keeping them airborne for that long would be challenging, she would be able to do it. Yeah, Katsuki's always been like that. Izuku rolled his eyes. Even though it would be smarter to go after some of the other teams, he sees my very existence as a personal challenge to his superiority. Well, you were making more direct challenges earlier, May pointed out. So, I mean, you can't really say you're surprised. Izuku chuckled. I guess that's true, isn't it? Oh, look, he's getting ready to try again. I appreciate the whole teamwork aspect, Bakugo, but Sero looked at him skeptically. Are you really sure this is gonna work? Seems kinda crazy. Come on, Katsuki reflect his hands at Sero, loading the tape balls into them. I'd like to see Deku resist bolting acid to the face, and with Shark Face up there with me to take the brunt of an eye bag weapon attack, there's nothing those extras will be able to do. I don't know, man, Kirishima said slowly. Seems kind of violent. I think it's a great plan, May cheered. And we've got, less than a minute, so, blast off you too. I'm sorry, Fukichi, Dark Shower purled continuously as he managed to pry their team from the mud. We don't have enough points anymore. It's not too late, Tokokiri pointed out. What about that last team from your class, the ice one? Think we could take them? Fukichi looked at Dark Shadow, who gave him a thumbs up. They're as powerful as demons, but when one has nothing to lose, they must deal with the devils. Pony looked a little lost. Is that a yes? Looks like our dear old Kachan is switching things up and bringing a friend, Hitoshi said. What's the other guy's quirk? Rocks, Izuku answered. I didn't expect Katsuki to actually work with his teammates, unless, of course, he just took off without warning and Kirishima didn't have a chance to let go. No time to second guess thing, Izuku, May grinned and adjusted her flamethrower. We've got incoming! Hitoshi shot his weapon towards Bakugo, but at the last minute, Kirishima let go of Bakugo's ankles and latched onto the capture weapon. He hardened and swung on the ribbons, like Tarzan, and suddenly, unexpected weight made their whole team suddenly lurch towards the ground. By the time that Hitoshi and Uraraka were able to get them back on balance, Katsuki was already in their faces, throwing balls of... Was that Zero's tape? May, flamethrower! Let us charge into battle, Furuomi cried. The team didn't move. Go! Dark Shadow shouted. They rushed towards Todoroki's team, who had been using a combination of Ice and Ida's engine quirk to stay out of range and keep the points they had collected. Dark Shadow stretched behind them and started wrapping around to force Todoroki's team into a close-range battle and keep them from running away. Kaminari, Todoroki ordered coolly, pulling some sort of sheet over himself. Attack! Zero wrapped a length of tape around Kirishima's waist and pulled him back to the team. Good work, dude. Thanks. Kirishima gave a sharp-toothed grin. How's Plan B going? Mina held out a couple headbands. It won't be enough, but I managed to burn a bunch of those crazy vines, and Zero used his tape to grab some of the headbands from that metal guy's team while you were gone. Do you think Bakugo will actually be able to pull this plan off? Kirishima shrugged and turned back towards the aerial batter. Well, I wouldn't underestimate either of them. May blasted the flamethrower at the tape guy's balls, right as Katsuki set off an explosion. Some of them vaporized entirely, while the rest splashed a suspicious pink liquid over everyone. Oh! Uraraka rubbed at her arms frantically. You filled Zero's tape with Ashido's acid? Really, Bakugo? Fuck, that hurts. Hitoshi grimaced and was busy wiping acid from his face when a hand suddenly emerged from the smoke and snatched away most of their headbands. Hey, Izuku, Bakugo's got our points. Shit! Izuku rushed to tally the points in his head. How many did he get? More than half, Hitoshi answered. Hey, Blasty, what do you think you're doing? No time! May messed with something on her tool belt and launched it at Bakugo. Take this! Bakugo's eyes widened as he was tangled in one of Mei's capture nets and started to fall. A line of tape reached to grab him, and Izuku tugged at Uraraka's sleeves. We need to remove the gravity. If he gets back on team with all the points, we won't move on. For Critic-kun, Mei yelled. Full blast on the jetpacks. Everyone, hold on tight. Ugh, Hitoshi groaned, but had a smile on his face as he adjusted the jetpack controls. I hate this family. Kamakiri, Tokoyami cried. The time is now. Kamakiri grinned as he threw a chain of his blades at Kaminari. He wouldn't have normally thought of using his uniform shirt to tie them together, but when Tokoyami said they would have needed a way to counteract Kaminari's electricity, the first instinct was to create a lightning rod with blades. Hopefully his aim was true enough that it would manage to stab Kaminari in the arm second in his attack, and the otherwise darbeling attack was cancelled into his blades and flowed harmlessly into the ground as the team kept advancing. Onwards! Pony yelled. For loss! Dark Shower reached for the headbands on Todoroki's neck, flinching back slightly when there was a brief shudder of fire, but pushing forward when it died only half a second. I think you mean for victory. Oh, right! For victory! Uraraka swallowed down the vomit that was threatening to come up as she pushed herself and her quirk to the limit. She grimaced as she grabbed onto the capture net with all 5 fingers. It would have been better to make Bakugo weightless, but with seconds left on the clock, she'll take what she could. Bakugo tried to force her way with explosions, and she could feel the net jerking away from her as Zero pulled the tape. But with the angle he was trapped at, Bakugo couldn't use his quirk to propel himself, which put their team in an advantage. Thanks, Kachan. Midoriya reached past her and yanked as many headbands as he could. Have a nice fall. Hitoshi watched with bated breath as a few seconds trickled by away. And that is time, Woza, in all my years. I don't think I've ever seen a more intense few minutes. Have you, Eraser? I thought the free-for-all was normally at the beginning of the match. Well, normally, more than half of the points aren't obliterated with 2 minutes to go, Shota said dryly. He looked over the stadium. The crowds were eating up the twists and turns to the battle, which had to be good for their ratings, and by exception, good for UA's publicity. Sarah had just barely managed to reel Bakugo in without touching the ground, and Sarah's team was shielding Uraraka from the cameras as she finally released her quirk and the contentments of her stomach. Tokoyami was doing well at interriling class bonding. It seemed as he and his classmates patted each other on the back and counted up the points they'd stolen at the last minutes, and the team from 1B looked smug that they were the only team that had managed to keep up all the points they'd stolen by the time the 10 million headband was taken out of play. What's this? Hisashi yelled, hyping up the crowd as the scoreboard readjusted itself to reflect the final totals. It looks like a good mix of students will be moving on. In first place, we have Team Monoma from Class 1B, then Team Shinso with students from the support, Gen Ed, and Class 1A. Next place is Team Bakugo from Class 1A with their impressive teamwork. Finally, in fourth place is Team Tokoyami with some points stolen at the very end. Oh, and because Team Tokoyami only has 3 members, one person from Team Tetsu will be moving on as well. I guess you could say this year is the year of the underdogs. Shota looked down at the field again. The teams that have moved on were laughing, crying, and celebrating. But he was paying more attention to Todoroki, who was looking down at his hands and appeared to be in shock. Shota knew he was imagining it, but he could almost feel the heat from Endeavor in the stands as he realized that his son wouldn't be moving on to the final round. To Shota's memory, it wasn't the first time that the strongest student had failed to make it to the one-on-one battles, but it was rare enough to be noticed, and he couldn't help but feel that his husband's observation However dramatic was correct. This was the year of the underdogs. Wow, okay, that was too many voices and too many names for me to enjoy. Thank you very much. I hated that. Okay, in all seriousness, it was an interesting chapter. I really liked this chapter and kind of bummed out that, they didn't get first place. But you know what? Second place. Second place is something, baby. And yeah, there was just too many names for my liking. Just because I don't like pronouncing names because I'm really bad at it. And there's too many different voices. I think that one annoyed me more because I'm sitting here and I was like, okay, what do I do? To the point where I'm just like, you know what? Everybody who's not important, but everybody who's like not gonna get a lot of lines are gonna get simple me voice, right? Or just slight changes, right? I wasn't paying that much attention. Like the main characters are the ones that I'm mainly worried about. Their voices and stuff like that, and then the side main characters as well. So yeah, that was an interesting chapter. I am excited. Todoroki isn't in. There's a lot of people who are in the last round, or not the last round, in the show, that aren't gonna be in this one. But, oh, it's so interesting. Okay, as always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Join our community Discord server, link is in the description, subscribe for more content, and thank you so much for watching.